James Vanderzee, of course, photographed the Harlem Renaissance, the 1920s.
Yeah.
And Kwame photographed the second Harlem Renaissance.
Well, Kwame
and I'm looking forward to doing some books with them too, with some of these photographs. Yeah.
Well, Kwame and his brother
Ilambe. Yes.
Were great inspirations to myself, as well as the Way You See Academy, which I was one of the founders. The Way You See Academy was a group of artists who came together in the 60s, and we realized that we were being portrayed as coons and as shiftless, lazy people, you know, and just distorting our faces. And this was all part of the racist agenda and philosophy that permeated the country, unfortunately, and coming out of the whole slavery.
Yeah.
Now,
it's still too prevalent in America.
Well, yeah, it's abated somewhat,
I mean,
due to our efforts.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
However, one of the things that we realized as responsible and sensitive image makers was the understanding that we had to deconstruct these images that have been imposed upon not only our people but the entire world for centuries.
Now, you were telling us about the Weusi. What I'd like to know is, how did you come up with the name Weusi? What does it mean?
Well, I think it's important. Firstly, the Weusi was a group of some 50 to 75 artists that came together magically, really, in 1964, and we put on the first outdoor art festival along 7th Avenue. We actually realized that our people were not acclimated to go into galleries and museums, and we understood the power of the visual sciences. And I know I'm stepping in deep ground here with you, brother. But anyway, but as an image maker, we realized that we had to deconstruct these negative images that our people were being lambasted with, or through television, through the visuals and everything. So we began to create these positive images, and we were inspired by history, the many African nations that were being, throwing off the yokes of colonialism, and also AJAS, which was the African Jazz Society Studios, and the great work they were doing.
Which was started by Kwame and Lambe and Max Roach and
exactly.
Yeah.
So it was a phenomenal groundswell, as you were part of it yourself, Playthell, of reaching back to our roots as well as embracing contemporary culture. Because I think it's very important. You know, one of the things, one of the big fights I had with some of my colleagues is they wanted to go back in antiquity. And my argument was, look, we need to use that as a reference, but we in contemporary times.
And it's very important.
Well, it's very important to take the tradition and modernize it, because it's a growing, living tradition, and it was not stagnant.
Well, let's take a look at this, because this work here in particular demonstrates a lot of what you're talking about. Now, this is a painting dedicated to Oshun. This is Oshun's garden.
Oshun's garden.
Okay, now Oshun is the Yoruba goddess of love. For some reason, the Yoruba captivated us. So all the people of Africa, Yoruba culture became the most widely practiced and the most widely admired among the cultural exodus of the 1960s.
Well, perhaps, Playthell, it's because the Yoruba were descendants of the ancient Egyptians. It is my understanding that there was a great migration from Egypt over into West Africa. So the Yoruba embraced a lot of the basic Egyptian philosophies that were part of that great culture.
But for me,
yeah,
it's the fact that the Yoruba were great artists. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Benin bronzes, these Yoruba sculptures, the ceremonial mass, the gungun mass, these are the works that had some of the most profound effect upon the modern European artists: Picasso, Matisse, George
Modigliani,
Salvador Dali,
even Matisse. Yeah.
But now, and they actually went to the Louvre and studied these works. There's no question about it. I mean, there's books that's been written on, and you can actually see the works that they were inspired by. Here you have everything. Here you have the African mythology working here with the mythology of Oshun, the Yoruba goddess of love, and you have both collage and paint. He's working in these various mediums, of which, as I said, he's a very versatile artist. He works in collage. You do paper cuts?
All of that. Listen, I'm a student of modern art. Let me just be clear, because while the tradition plays a central role in a lot of my thinking, I am very much a contemporary modern artist. For instance, in this piece here, this piece started out with I had some leftover paint in a can of house paint. And I'm one who believes that the materials, the paint, the paper, whatever I incorporate into my work has a life of its own. In other words, it's part of nature and it has its own life. Well, I don't like to waste materials. So this particular can of paint, there was some white paint left on the lid, and I took the lid and I kind of punched it. So you see these shapes here.
And I'm seeing heliocentric worlds. You know what
okay,
I mean?
Well, that's the way it began with this shape. But this piece went over a period, if you notice, from 1995 to 2007. So it actually had a 12-year
Genesis, maturation, yeah.
Okay, and much of my work, many of my works will go over that period. It's not like I'm working on it every day, but it begins, and over the years, because I work in crops.
How many works of art? Do you have any idea how many works? I know your work is in Europe, it's in Japan, it's in private collections everywhere, it's all over the Caribbean. Do you have any idea how many works of art you've actually created in this 45 years period?
Thousands and thousands of works.
As well as the big murals. You should see some of the murals here around Harlem that he's done.
Right down the
yes,
block.
one right down the block. Yeah, we should look at it. Yeah, we should take a look and show you his mural work. You know?
But this work developed over a period of years, and it embraces the whole Yoruba scientific system. I call it a cosmic system because the Orishas, or these God forces, are really reflections of nature. And unlike what the missionaries would have us believe, or about this.
You might say the clueless, Eurocentric, patronizing missionaries, and of course you never. Of course, now we know what they really did. Now that African writers are beginning to tell their own story, and of course things fall apart. Chinua Achebe, it's a great example of what the missionary was really all about.
Well, as I was saying, I'm really a modern painter, and I embrace all of the techniques. You mentioned Pollock and cooning and all of those to me impressed me with their color, their form, and they were trying to break barriers and break out of the cocoon that had been imposed upon them by contemporary art. Many people don't realize that de Kooning and Pollock and all of them were really revolutionaries, and that their movement was co-opted by the corporate structure, because these guys didn't start out to become rich in that sense. They were painting to try and free modern art from some of the boundaries that have been set. But they were co-opted by the corporate structure and then made to represent what is called American aesthetic. A lot of people don't realize that. But nevertheless, so I embrace all of the modern techniques. I'm constantly exploring. My work is a constant exploration and a constant quest for new worlds and new equations. I believe, and of course some of my more philosophical, intellectual friends, we may have a debate on this, but I believe that the visual sciences can actually unlock certain portions of the consciousness.
Let me just tell you this. Look, this question that you and I have had about what science is.
How many decades?
All right, but listen, I would say that you are a visual alchemist.
Okay.
All right? Because science is a particular thing. I just want to make myself clear about this. Being a partisan of the scientific method. Science cannot answer all questions. You know, alchemy and religion can answer questions that science can't even begin to approach. Science can only answer those questions which are quantifiable.